You are light. You are energy. You are God within. This is divine alignment. I am your guide, and I can only give you the truth. Grand awakening, divine beings. Grand awakening. It is truly divine being alive. We are here. We have made it. Grand awakening. Grand awakening. I'm Trinity, and this is Divine Alignment. It's a platform for those of you who are awakening to the truth of who you are. You are awakening to this consciousness, this voice that is in your mind, that is guiding you. Some of you may be experiencing questions that you're seeking answers to. It feels as though you're going through an awakening. That is what divine alignment is for. It's a place for you to go to learn about self-awareness, learning about who you are, the process and functions of your mind, learn about your connections to the sun, the moon, and stars. Two years ago, I made a covenant with the God within me. I asked God within me, I said, God, if you show me the way to my authenticity, if you show me the way to my truth, so I can show up and connect with my purpose, my message, my mission, if you show me how to connect with this person that I am seeing in my mind, this vision, I will record the process. I will write it down and I will share the world. That process is what I share now. That process is my message. And that place where you go when you awaken to the truth of who you are, becoming authentic, discovering who you are, is divine alignment. It is aligning with your divinity, aligning with your highest and wisest self. I didn't know the path, but I carried the vision. There was this woman that was inside of me that was a vision. She looked like this. And I desired to be her. I desired to allow her to express herself. And I wasn't aware of how to go about that. So I started to go on a journey of seeking answers to questions. Who is she? What is this person in my mind? What is this vision that I'm seeing? How do I connect with this person? And it drew me to learning about knowledge of self and who I am and how I function as a human being. 2 years of being on this journey. Now I am awake. I found my way back to source, to the divine consciousness that lives in all creation. I was asking questions. Who am I outside of my societal titles? Where did I come from? It was the question that drove me. It was the question that moved me. I know the sound. I know the feeling. And I know the vibration of the kingdom. From my experience with understanding what and who God is, the best teacher that I knew was Yeshua, Jesus. And Jesus taught that the kingdom is within. And so I would always ask this question like, well, the kingdom is within. How do you get there? How do you get to that kingdom? And that is what I discovered on my self-awareness journey. The kingdom is where your peace is. The kingdom is where your mission is. The kingdom is where your purpose is. The kingdom is where your passion is. And a lot of what we know and what we've been taught does not teach us that. It does not guide us to the inner kingdom. So that is what divine alignment is. It's understanding the signs of waking up. What are you what are you awakening to? What are you waking up to? You're waking up to the programming. A lot of you are sensing the fakeness in life. You're seeing the performance. You're seeing the the how everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's talking the same way. Everybody look the same way. Everybody have the same ideology, mindsets. And when you wake up to that, when you start to see that, you realize that's programming. What you're awakening to is the matrix. You're awakening to the matrix. I have walked through the matrix. The matrix is a man-made system of illusion. I have seen how it programs minds, manipulates emotions, and controls behavior. I have watched it build invisible prisons around human souls, and I have escaped. That is what divine alignment is. And I'm going to give you all a presentation of what I wrote down along this journey. So that way I can then help somebody else escape from the programming and connect with their truth and their authenticity and their message so they can show up the way I'm showing up in your authentic energy, in your truth. Grand awakenings, everyone. Grand awakenings. All right. So many of you guys are experiencing this great awakening. It's what you're going through is you are starting to ask questions because you're seeing the programming and you're starting to remember who you are. Remember meaning parts of you were scattered. You weren't taught the right information. You weren't taught about yourself, your history. You weren't taught about your mind and your connection to the sun, the moon, and stars. You weren't taught about the functions of your mind and how your reality is created. You weren't taught these things. You weren't taught about what your divinity is. You weren't taught about how to connect with the God within you. And so now you're awakening, you're starting to ask questions because it's like you're a circle trying to, or you're like a square trying to fit into a circle peg. Doesn't fit. And so you're desiring to just be you, but you don't see yourself anywhere. What you mainly see is programming. And that programming is the matrix. And so this is the great awakening, remembering who you are, putting yourself back together, awakening to the truth of who you are. Because when you know thyself, you'll know and connect with the God within you. This is the doctrine of divine alignment. See, I connected with my ancestors. I was asking the question, who am I? And it took me on this journey of ancestry and bloodline and genealogy. And I started to learn about my connection to my ancestors. And I have landed in Kemet. It was these symbols that were guiding me, these images that was guiding me. And I learned that in ancient Kemet, it was a civilization where they erected temples for people to come and awaken to the truth of who they are and connect with the God within. It was a place where people understood and connected with their divinity. They connected with their purpose and their mission and their passion, and they were able to travel all over the world and uplift civilizations. I understood that that's what the Moors were doing. I understood that we as melanated beings are humanitarians, and we understood the mechanics of the soul. And when you came to Kemet, you'd be awakened and activated to your truth. There were symbols there that you can go to, and they would assess you, and they would take you through a series of initiations to activate your soul. And you learn about your energy, and you learn about your frequency, and you connect with what you're here to do. This is the knowledge that is missing. And this is the knowledge, the doctrine of divine alignment, because it breaks down the mechanics of your soul. When the awakening being begins to have the consciousness, this is where they can come and learn and have questions, seek answers to, and learn about who they are. Because when you know yourself, when you know thyself, you'll know the God within you. This is the doctrine of divine alignment. So as you guys saw from earlier, as you guys saw earlier, you see that the green, you see the matrix, you see the connection to the matrix, because what you're experiencing, is you're seeing how information is being disseminated. You see how media is putting out certain information. We see that it's propaganda. You're seeing how it goes into the minds of people and it influences them. It controls the way they think, feel, and behave. And they start to collectively behave a certain way. You're seeing how that works. You're seeing that process. What you're experiencing is you're waking up to the matrix. You are waking up to a mechanical part of the matrix. You're awakening to the code of the matrix. I have walked through the matrix, the man-made system of illusion. I have seen how it programs minds, manipulates emotions, and controls behavior. I have watched it build invisible prisons around human souls, and I have escaped. I see myself as Neo, waking up to the matrix, waking up, seeing how people are programmed and hooked, being taken advantage of, manipulated, being extracted for their energy. And that's what a lot of you feel. You feel like you're on this endless cycle, this endless wheel of life. And a lot of you are saying it shouldn't be this hard. And it shouldn't. It shouldn't be this hard to live your life. Feeling like you getting nickel and dimed just to exist. Through self-awareness, I decoded my matrix code, just like Neo. He was on the computer and he was asking the questions. And he found people that were hacking the systems, Morpheus and Trinity. I started to hack my own system. Once I started to see the code and the programming, I disconnected from it and I asked the questions, well, who am I? And I started to assess myself. I started to learn about my energetic signature pattern, my source code. Through self-awareness, I decoded my own matrix code. I learned to discern the outer programming of the world from the source programming of my divinity. See, the world was programming me to go to school, get a job, get a degree, go to school, get a degree, get a job, and then work to build up corporations and someone else's dreams for my whole life. And then when I'm 67 years old, I then focus on myself. And I realized that I didn't fit inside of the job market. I didn't see myself. This person that you're seeing today, I didn't see it in the job market. And so I would ask myself, well, who am I? What is my purpose? What am I here to do? And that's when I discovered my life path. See, our ancestors left the codes that we needed in order to find our purpose. And I started to realize and I learned that I'm a life path 11 and I'm a spiritual leader. I'm a spiritual teacher. And so I started to embrace spirituality and metaphysics, and I started to learn about what was being taught in Kemet and the symbols and what it meant. And I was applying it to my life, and I realized that I can teach this to others. And I started to connect. This is who I am. This is why I do this naturally. I started to learn about my strengths of communication. And instead of using that at the job, I started using it here on social media, communicating my message, communicating my truth, teaching it to others. Hold on one second, guys. We're good. I'm going to open up the chat so I can see. I learned to silence the false voices and tune into the divine voice within me. There were false voices in my mind, the false voices of the social programming. Being a Black woman in America, you're socially programmed to believe that your natural look as it is a low standard of beauty and it's undesirable. You're taught that you have to change your looks, change who you are in order to be accepted. I was taught that this certain kind of music, which was hypersexual, was the way to be. And that was the way to go and the lifestyle to choose, materialism. And I was scrolling on social media for hours and taking up my time, being distracted, buying all these products to cover up the insecurity. All these voices that was in my mind telling me what I should and shouldn't be. I had to disconnect from it all. I had to disconnect. And when I disconnected, started tuning out those voices, there was a very loud voice left within me. And that voice was the divine voice, my highest and wisest self. It was my higher consciousness. And it was the consciousness that whispers truth in the stillness. And the more I started to spend time with that voice, I started to write down what that voice was saying. I took it out of the darkness of my mind and wrote it down into this, brought it out of the darkness of my mind and brought it into this three-dimensional reality. I started to write down this voice. bring it into its physical form, bring it into existence. And I started to spend time with this voice. I started to develop a relationship with this voice. I have been to the depths of hell. We're taught that heaven and hell is a place that you go after you die, but that is not true. Heaven and hell is a frequency, is a state of being. It is the realm of negative thoughts, fear, anxiety, and despair. That is what hell is. Having negative thought patterns that go on loop over and over and over again. I shouldn't have did this. You shouldn't have did that. Oh, you're so stupid. Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you messed up. Oh, you're never going to make it. Something's wrong with you. You're broken. Oh, they're going to hate you. They're having that thought pattern over and over again. That's torment. Having fear, shocks to the heart, shocks to the gut, having anxiety, thoughts, giving you constant doses of stress hormones, cortisol, fear, despair, anxiety, panic attacks, sweat. That's hell. I've been there. I have been to hell. And I have been to heaven. I have awakened from the matrix. In the movie The Matrix, it's like being hooked up to these machines, and you're laying there in a field of pods amongst other human beings that have been enslaved for their energy and their source and have been turned into currency to feed machines and beings foreign to you. And being enslaved and controlled and manipulated, that is a place of hell. Awakening to the truth, awakening to the inner kingdom is heaven. It is the realm of alignment, clarity, truth, and peace. Alignment with your purpose, alignment with your passion, alignment with your strengths, alignment in your values, alignment in your mission, alignment in your message, clarity in your message, clarity in your purpose, clarity in your identity, clarity in your truth, truth of who you are, truth of why you're here, and the peace of knowing that. I know the way between worlds, and I am here to guide you across that bridge. I'm here to guide you to Zion. I am here to help you escape the matrix, and I am here to guide you to your Zion. Your inner kingdom, where your peace is, where your mission is, where your passion is, where your purpose is. I know the way. And that is what divine alignment is. And this is the doctrine, the teachings of divine alignment, how to align with your divinity. I am here to guide you across the bridge. The purpose of this doctrine of divine alignment, is a map to your inner kingdom, a map to your Zion. Because the matrix has you asleep, It has you, it teaches you only enough to have you become a worker. It doesn't teach you about self-awareness. That's why you can go your whole life going to school and you don't understand what your purpose is. You don't understand who you are. You don't know. You go to college, you figure it out, but you still don't know. So you just go with the best thing that pays enough to support your lifestyle that you like to do. It is your map to your inner kingdom. You no longer want that path anymore, and you want to align with your truth. Well, that is what the doctrine of divine alignment is. It is a map to your inner kingdom. It is for those who are awakening, those who feel the inner kingdom stirring in remembrance. You're asking those questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my potential? You're asking the 5 existential questions that pertain and that is programmed into every being. We have our own source code, but the matrix has hacked our code, has hacked our energy, and plugged us into their outer programming. But we already came here with the spark of God, with our own source code, our own strengths, our own energy signature patterns, our own paths to take, our own purposes. Our purpose isn't to just go to school, get a degree, and build up these corporations. We are meant to do more. What is that path? It is for those that are hearing the call of their higher selves. When you see me show up in this way, this is Trinity. My higher self was guiding me. She was a voice that was in my mind, speaking this same way to me, like I'm speaking to you. She was speaking to me. And 2 years ago, I wasn't settled in Trinity, but I was hearing her in my mind, and I kept saying, I want to be her. I want her to express herself, guide me. And I started to listen to her. And she would guide me and she would tell me things like, watch this video, read this book, look into this, research that, use this tool, use this technology, learn your strengths, learn about values, learn about your personality traits, learn about your mind, pick up books on Kemet, learn about trauma, learn about generational curses, learn about genealogy, learn about DNA, learn about genetic sequencing, learn about the functions of your mind. And I was going on this journey of answering these questions. And it is those questions, and this is for those that are questioning their reality. You're questioning your reality. Something's not right. There's got to be more to life than this. Why is it that every year things are going up, the price, but yet wages don't? Why is it that some certain people, melanated people, are on the bottom of the racial hierarchy? Why is it that God doesn't look like me? Why is it that God is outside of me when I hear a voice that be really me doing the work? Why is it that these foods are making us sick? Why? You start to question. You're questioning your reality. Why are people acting a certain way? Why is it that they put out certain information, people watch it on a main stage, the news, and then next thing you know, it influences people collectively? Why is reality feel programmed and controlled and manipulated? It is for those who are ready to escape the matrix and return to their divine truth. The doctrine of divine alignment will reveal what the matrix is and what it feels like on the inside. We're going to break down the mechanical pieces that make up the matrix. We're going to break down what it is to be in the matrix. In the beginning of the movie, Neo was going through this mundane routine of going to work and doing a job and performing and acting. And he was realizing he never really fit in. Like he always was like, I'm not made for this. I'm programmed for something else. There's something in me. My source code is telling me that, ah, he wasn't an extrovert like what the system and the program rewards. He was more of an introvert, more of an intellect, studying, researching on the computer, seeking, hacking, learning, developing his own codes and intelligence because he was trying to decode himself through seeking, asking questions and seeking answers. What is it like living like that? Because when you awaken to the truth of who you are, you need to know and be able to understand what you're experiencing. How do you escape its control? Through self-awareness and source connection, through knowledge of self. Learn about your strengths. Learn about your natural energy patterns and your energy signals and signatures. Learn about values that are the invisible forces behind your choices. The matrix gives you values of materialism. It shows you what success is. It shows you what beauty standards are. It shows you what is the most valuable, what you should obtain to. It shows you what desires are. What if your values and your desires don't align with that? I used to desire materialism. And I thought that if I had the house, the clothes, the car, the neighborhood, then that would make me fulfilled. And I realized, okay, I'm obtaining these things, but it's not giving me a sense of fulfillment. And that is what led me on this journey of self-awareness and connecting with my source coding, learning that I'm an individual being made up of a unique combination of my strengths, my personality traits, my values, and my experiences. All these things combined make me who I am. And I was coded for this. I was coded for this moment. And I've connected with my source code, which is how I'm able to show up in this way. How to understand the difference between outer programming and divine programming. How the matrix rewards you for looking a certain way, talking a certain way, performing a certain way, being a certain way, to showing up in your truth and your authentic self, even if you don't see it in the real world. I didn't see this person in the real world. I didn't see it in the world. I saw her in my mind. And I had to assess who she is, ask her certain questions, inner reflect on who she is, so that way I can pull her out of the darkness of my mind into this physical reality. And this is an expression of who she is in my mind, my truth. The mechanisms of oppression that keep humanity asleep. This is what you will learn in the doctrine of divine alignment, the teachings of divine alignment, waking up to the truth. You're going to learn about the mechanisms, the 5 mechanisms of oppression that is keeping humanity asleep. In the movie, the fourth movie, Resurrections, where Trinity was going through that bypass, and there were these gears that was turning to bypass her, do a brain bypass, consciousness bypass with bugs, so she could get a shock of remembering who she is outside of the matrix, so she can then get herself out. She needed to be aware of it. She needed self-awareness, and bugs offered that to her. I always wondered, what are those gears? What are those gears that are, I'm going to get into the first signs, but hold on, let me just go back. Let me go back here. I always wondered, what are those gears? What are the mechanisms? What are the triggers that the matrix uses to keep us asleep? They have our eyes closed, they have our ears plugged, they have our mouth plugged, they have all these plugs hooked up to our minds, our consciousness. What are the mechanisms that they're using to keep us asleep in this dream world? I learned through self-awareness, through learning about myself and my own mind. Once I started to learn about the functions of my mind, I started to see how they were programming me. Because if they give me images, values, if they give me what success looks like, then I am going to do it. I'm going to behave in a way to achieve that. If they tell me what to desire, it's going to affect the way I think. They're going to give me a thought. That thought gets transformed into, when I put my will into it, when I put my focus into that thought, that image they give me, it gets transformed into a hormone. That hormone floods my body. It makes me feel a certain way. And when I feel a certain way, I'm going to behave a certain way. I'm going to do a certain way. You see, once I started to learn about how my mind works, how my reality is created, I started to pick up on their systems, the mechanisms that they're using to program my mind, to keep us asleep. You're going to learn about the divine nature of melanin, energy, and light, because we are multidimensional energetic beings. We're not taught that in school, because if we understood what we are, that was the question that was driving me. What am I? Who am I? What is my connection to the sun, the moon, and stars? And when I started to ask the questions, I started to get answers. And I started to learn about my divine nature as a melanated, multidimensional, energetic light being. That is what you're going to learn. I'm going to break that down, the science behind it. We're going to learn the sacred power of the divine feminine to shape generations through consciousness. The reality of God consciousness, the eternal intelligence of creation itself. You are not separate from God. God is not outside of you. One of the mechanisms that is designed to control the way you think, feel, and behave, your reality, what you believe, is religion. It teaches you that God is outside of yourself, but it is not. God is a consciousness. God is a voice. Because when you learn that you are an energetic light being, when you learn that you are an energetic being and you vibrate on a frequency, as a human, you have a mind, a brain, and that brain interprets frequency. And we interpret frequency through our senses as a human being. We have outer senses and we have inner senses. Our outer senses is taste, our smell, we hear, we can see, we feel. Those are our outer senses. We also have those same inner senses. We can feel our organs on the inside. We have inner taste, inner desires. We have inner feelings. We have inner sight. We can see thoughts and images and imaginations. We also can hear voices, inner voices. And our minds interpret frequency through inner thought, vision. And we understand what that vision is saying to us through what? A voice. And we understand what that voice is saying to us. We communicate with that voice through language. God is a consciousness. It is a frequency that we tune into. It is the highest and wisest version of ourselves. It is the highest and wisest voice within us that guides us through the challenges of life. It is not outside of you. That is what you will learn on this channel. I'll break that down. You will also learn the truth of human potential. As energetic beings, we are infinite. You cannot destroy energy. It can only be transformed and transferred. We have another life to live. And what we carry into our lives, our purpose here is our purpose on earth is to evolve our being. We are here to have certain experiences to evolve our being, learn our character, evolve our person. In order to do that, we need to learn who we are, because it is our traits that we take to our next lives. We can't take materialism. We can't take our house. We can't take our car. We can't take our clothes or our jewelry. But what you can take is your strengths. What we can take is knowledge of self, our programming, our source code, our energy signatures, our experiences. What we can take is our traits, our character. That is what we take into our next life. And we're here to develop and evolve that into our next one. The genetic, spiritual, and cosmic keys to liberation. Understanding your genetic code, understanding your spiritual third eye, understanding your cosmic keys, your signature patterns. They are the keys to your liberation, your freedom, your truth. Those are the keys to your kingdom. Your access codes, like Zion. You need access codes to get to Zion. I know the way, and I have the access codes. I know the access codes to your truth, and that is what you will get in divine alignment. You're also going to learn the 5 sacred questions, which are the foundation of this doctrine. It is the foundation of this doctrine rest upon. My apologies. Let me read that again. The foundation of this doctrine rests upon 5 sacred questions, the same questions that awaken the consciousness of every seeker. 2 years ago, I was seeking the truth of who I am. I was seeking it. And I was realizing that I don't see myself in the workforce. I see this person that is in my mind, this woman that is in my mind. I want her to express herself. I want to follow her, but I don't know how to get there. I knew a little bit about passion, so I said, well, let me just learn about my passion. I just want to live and learn and just live off my passion. So I started to read books about passion. Then I started to read books about purpose. I said, I just want to live out my purpose. I just want to do the thing that God called me to do. I know I have a calling on my life. And so from reading books about purpose, I came across Miles Monroe because he had a book on purpose and vision. And he had teachings on purpose and vision, how to find your purpose, understanding your vision, the inner kingdom within. And I was like, yeah, that's me. I feel that. And he had these teachings, and he said there are 5 questions that are programmed into every human being. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter who you are, what your race, your class, your status is, it's programmed into every human being. First question, who am I? Programmed into every human being, you are programmed to find out who you are outside of your societal titles and roles. Who are you? Outside of you being a mom, a student, a coworker, outside of you being an auntie. Who are you outside of your societal titles, outside of you being a realtor, an entrepreneur? Who are you? I know who I am. I'm a multidimensional, melanated, energetic being. I vibrate on 9 ethers. My hair shows my vibration level. It's kinky. It shows the frequency that I vibrate on. I'm able to exist in multiple dimensions in this one physical body. I am my past, present, and future all at once. I am Trinity. Who are you outside of your societal titles and roles? Where do you come from prior to you being born on this planet? Where did you come from? I was a seed within my father. I was also an egg within my mother. I am multiple dimensions. I exist in multiple dimensions at once. I'm a multi-dimensional being. I traveled through the universe of my mother's womb to get to Earth, to get to the egg, to be born here. I traveled through the dark waters of Nun, my mother. What is my purpose beyond the programming of the world? I am a spiritual guide. I'm a spiritual leader. I'm a spiritual teacher. I teach you how to travel within the depths of your soul. I am your guide. What is my potential? These are the 5 questions that is programmed into every human being. I was asking, how far can I go? What is my potential? What can I achieve? In order to understand that, I had to realize that I'm an energetic being and energy can't be destroyed. In my next life, I'm going to take what I've gotten from this life and it's going to build upon my last. Every life that I live builds upon another. My potential is infinite. The universe is the limit. What is my vision for my life? What is my divine? What is my divinity desiring to create and be and become? I had a vision of this woman and what I wanted to do, what I wanted to say, what I wanted to speak, my message. I knew. I didn't know the details of it, but I knew. So these are the questions that are the keys that open up the gates of your inner kingdom. I asked these questions within me. I started to learn about my chakras and my energy system within my body. And I started to learn how my womb was a source of creation. And I can use that and I can squeeze that to develop inner creative energy to where I was building up my inner energy, my inner chakra, to where I opened up the doors of my heart to my inner kingdom. When you enter them, truthfully, you step into divine alignment, the sacred union between your soul and source, between who you are and how you were created to the one that has created you. Access codes to the new kingdom. Divine alignment is not a religion. It is not a belief system. It is a state of being. It is for those who are awakening to the consciousness, to the mind, to the questions, to the programming. It is the remembrance of your divine nature, the realization that the kingdom of heaven is within you. Those who awaken to this truth becomes the architect of a new world, a world built on love, awareness, purpose, and divine law. I used to ask the question, is this all there is to life? When I first came to the realization that we are economic slaves, that we're still enslaved, waking up to the truth and seeing the pods of humans, seeing the programming on the mass scale, waking up like Neo and seeing that horror, seeing that we are still enslaved, that freedom is false. And there's a false reality. When I woke up to that truth, I cried. And I said, God, is this all there is? Is this what I worked so hard to be born here to be, was a slave? I asked this question to the God within me. I asked the question, is this all there is to life? I traveled so far, come so far for this, to be a slave? And it was through developing and discovering my source code that I found, no, I came here to break a generational curse, to break generational cycles, and to develop and build the foundations to a new world according to my God within. A world built on love, awareness, purpose, and divine law. I asked the God within to show me if there's more to life, what other civilizations was able to, where you can go and become awakened to your truth and find your purpose and your mission in life. There's got to be a place that has done it. And that is where I landed in Kemet. These symbols was guiding me internally. And when I came across these symbols, it intrigued me. And I started to learn about, for thousands of years, melanated beings like myself was ruling. And we erected temples that helped people awaken to their truth and understand their energetic signature patterns and understand their mission, their passion, their purpose in life. And people were coming to be awakened and understood their connection to the sun, the moon, and the stars and where we came from. And we learned and erected temples to help people understand where they went after we transitioned off the planet, where we were prior to being on this planet. We are where we are going, where we are headed, the history of the world. It was a place in a world, in a civilization built on love, awareness, purpose. There was no need for religion. There was no need for large armies. There was no need for the systems of oppression. Education was meant to draw out your source code so you can walk and live in your divine purpose. There was no need for religion when you understood divine law, the law of love, the law of reciprocity, the law of circulation. There was no need for religion. And this education, this knowledge, this wisdom was freely given. And that is the world that I am building with the doctrine of divine alignment. Together, we form a new lineage, the kingdom of those who know themselves, know their mission, and live in alignment with their divine code. So that is divine alignment. I wanted to come on here and share with you what divine alignment is, share with you that I am Trinity. I love the movie The Matrix, and Trinity is a voice that is who you see now. She was in my mind years ago. A couple years ago, I was meditating in my garage, and she spoke to me, and she said Trinity, and that was her name. Because I was like, who are you? She was talking to me, telling me about different things to do, how to get to know, use my womb to develop and create energy, to open up the gates of my heart, to see within me. And then I started to see the universe within me, within my third eye, the gateway to it. And she was guiding me, telling me to read different things and to research and to use the tools and technologies before me to use to learn who I am. And I was like, who are you? Who is this person guiding me? And in my garage one day, she said, Trinity. I am Trinity. And I bring you the doctrine of divine alignment. So if this interests you, if this resonates with you, go ahead and subscribe. In my next video, I'm going to go over the signs that you are awakening. And I will also go over the matrix, what it is, and breaking down the 5 mechanisms of the matrix, the systems of oppression that keeps us asleep. So subscribe to the channel, and great awakenings to you, divine beings. Until next time, peace and light.
Wake up. You've been programmed, but you are more. You are light. You are energy. You are God within. This is divine alignment. I am your guide, and I can only give you the truth.